Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Windsor. I'm a product management lead in apps and cloud platform. I've been at Google for about 3 years, but I've been building developer tools and platforms and various things, and obviously using them for 30+ years or so. I'm very happy to be here with you today, and also the live stream audience. Welcome. And this is my colleague, Geva.
Hi, I'm Geva. I've been at Google for 5 years. I'm the product manager for AppMaker. I've worked on photos and maps before, and before then, I had my own startups. For those of you here in the audience and probably in the live stream, we assume you're business analysts, IT software engineers. Maybe you're a partner or ISV writing business apps for your customers. There are probably some CIOs, CDOs here, and all of you share some workflow challenges, customer information handling in your companies, or as we assume you came to hide from the sun in the shade. We are going to tell you about AppMaker today, why we built it, what you can do with it. We'll have a demo and show you how it works. We have some customer stories to share with you, and we'll tell you where we are today with the product and what's ahead of us. If we have some time at the end, there will be a few questions that we can take.
So, very high level, AppMaker is a rapid application or low-code development tool. It's intended to allow your businesses to build their own internal applications quickly, efficiently, and generally much easier. It extends the range of things that you can do and the range of people who can do those things to build applications for your business. We start with really the core key benefits. I think speed is the #1 thing that we think about. Time to getting that solution built, ease with which you do so. Speed is the most important thing we bring here. But it's also deeply integrated with all the G Suite functionality and APIs and all the applications, as well as other parts of Google Cloud Platform and Maps and so forth. Another key point about AppMaker is that it's compliant with your Drive policies. So as a domain administrator, applications built using AppMaker are automatically compliant with the policies you've applied. So the data and the applications are limited to the domain the same way you control with Drive. So when we think about the kinds of problems that people have, people are building applications, they're using applications. Every business has their core line of business software, their operational software, their productivity software, and then there's all these gaps in between. And these gaps tend to get filled out with either manual processes or, in the past, with SharePoint and even Lotus Notes, and an unreasonably large amount of spreadsheets get used and built up to handle all these little things that are essential to the running of the business, filling the gaps between these high-order services, but are not core to the business, not easy to build efficiently. Often they're being driven by actual people in the business rather than IT, so they're not product managers, they don't know what they're trying to do, they just know the problem they're trying to get to. That space leaves a lot of unfulfilled potential in the business for automation, for efficiencies, and so forth. AppMaker is here to make that space easier to fill, easier to address, without creating compliance and management problems.
I would like to set the picture here for you. We at Google had similar problems. A few years ago, our HR people and recruiters came over to our IT organization, which we call CorpEng, and they asked us to help them with some issues they had with recruiting. So we started getting a lot of candidates, and the numbers went up very quickly, thousands a month. Each one of these candidates is interviewed by several people at Google, and each interviewer produces quite a lengthy feedback. And we realized that it's really difficult to process all this and calibrate our candidates across some skill sets that we care about. Hiring committees also had a hard time deciding which candidates to give offers to. And we noticed that our response time to candidates is really lagging. So we realized in IT that we need to help our HR department. And we built an internal app for them. More requests came from other parts of Google. And applications started to be asked for from many different departments. One example is a global holiday lookup. As we expanded and our offices have reached beyond 70 countries, we needed to know which country has a holiday today. So if you want to schedule a meeting with one of our colleagues, we don't do it on a national vacation day. Another example is our education reimbursement system. So our employees are allowed to take some personal courses, and the company pays a part of that. And so in order to approve this, monitor the correct use of that, and also handle all the budget and money transfers, we needed an internal app, and we built that one as well. The IT department itself was getting good appetite and wanted to track their own internal projects as they became larger with a kind of custom dashboard. And so they built an app for that as well. We realized that we need a low-code application development tool so that we could make our engineers more efficient, spend less time on these internal apps, and the majority of their time building things that solve our hard technical problems, and also to empower other people across the company to build their own apps using AppMaker. A handful of applications became very many over a relatively short course of time, and we now have around 400 applications inside Google itself. These are used by thousands of Googlers every day, many of which don't even realize that they're using AppMaker-built apps. And the fact that we are most proud about is that 80% of these applications have been built by people outside of the IT organizations who are not trained software engineers.
I think it's important to think about the space that AppMaker can fill, and specifically the kind of applications you can build. These are not the applications that you're currently building today, because most businesses have basically figured out what apps they have to have, and they're building them with their normal IT organizations. It's all those applications that you've just never been able to take on. And this has a transformative effect on business, because all of a sudden, the business stakeholders, the people right there in the trenches solving day-to-day business problems, can go from a need to a solution very quickly, and it transforms the whole business in terms of the potential of what you can do and the empowerment that every team has to go off and automate or manage their various solutions. And so our long-term goal is to bring that power, to make it more and more people able to get from a business need to a business solution without IT being overwhelmed by these things. And when you look at your business, think of it not in terms of, am I going to change how I'm building my core line of business or operational apps? Think of it in terms of, what new apps will I be able to build with relatively little resources that I could never have taken on before? Next slide. So now Geva is going to give a quick demo. We'll do some live coding here on stage, so what could possibly go wrong? If we could switch over to the demo screen, please. And he's going to talk you through actually building an AppMaker app from scratch, and you'll see just how quickly and easily we can go off and build things. Over to you, Geva.
So what I want to show you today is how I build a project tracker for my own little company. And as in many cases, it's based off a sheet that we used to use in the past. And we now want to make it have UI that's easy to use. And I'll start doing this with like new app in AppMaker. There are some pages that are pre-defined here. The first step that we do is to bind our data source to the app. So I'm going to connect the sheet that I've just showed you to AppMaker's internal storage. Let's call it projects. And I'll import the fields from a Google spreadsheet. So I only have one here, which I've showed you. I get a quick preview of the fields, so I can confirm that this is the actual data model that I want. Each of the columns is a variable here. And I can see that they are defined before I create them. I can also add fields to this data model. So I'd like to add a new field for the owner of the project. And I can also move this around to be the first column. And I also add a field for the budget allocated to the project. You can move that one over here. I'd like to show you some more functionality. For example, for priority, if I click the advanced tab here, I can choose whole numbers and actually set values for the priorities of all the projects that I want to track. So now that we have our data model, we can go over to design the UI of the application. So I'll start off with the main page. And what I want to have here is a table that will show all my projects. So I open our widgets here, and I drag a table onto my page. I get prompted to ask which data source I want to bind this to. And I'll make all the fields except the owner and the name editable. Choose the default. And we have our table defined here. There is also the fab here, which I want to add an action to, so that when you click on it, I want to open a dialog that will go to the Create Project page. So now let me go to the Create Project page, where I'll choose another widget, which is a form for data entry. Also bind it to my data source. And here we don't need the done field, because this is just when we add in projects. For the owner field, I'd like to show you a functionality that we have here, which is a user picker. I can drag that into the form, and I'm prompted to ask whether I need this data model, the directory one, and I do. I will bind the owner to that field in our data model, and put a label so that when we have the form in the app, it's readable, and I can delete the simple owner input field. So now I have this form where I can add in my projects. The one thing I'll do is, on clicking the Submit, I would like to close this dialog, so I can add a custom action where I can actually add some code. To close the dialog. I can do that later. And so now when I want to add some more visuals to our demo, I can go back to the main page and add a bar chart to show how our budget is utilized. This will be tied to the project. And for each project, we'll show the bars. So what we do right now is we create the application. You can do a preview and see a version of what I've built so far. And we do need to go some authorizations for data access the first time that we do this. And I'd just like to make a few shortcuts here and move to like the finished app that would be created from this. And so it would look like this. We have the chart here, the bar chart with projects that I've already added. I can click on the fab to get the form in front of me and add like another project for Devin, who is an engineer on our team. I can choose a priority for this project and ask Devin to do it by the end of next week.
Probably need to refresh.
And let me try and add another project for myself. I can show you my inbox that's empty. I've added some functionality here to send an email to myself. Hope this will work. Here's the user picker. This is high priority to finish this demo. Today. And here you can see the email in my inbox. Or it's supposed to be here. We have to see the one email.
It's the mail.
OK. So I just showed you how you can build a project tracker pretty quickly, except for some things that we didn't see here. I think it went pretty well. Obviously, when you start building this out on your own, it would probably take you more than just 10 minutes. We had prepared some things in advance, but that's about the scale of building a small app.
Can we flip back to the slides, please? Advance. So as you saw, Geva was able to build a mostly functional application in just a matter of minutes, live on stage. Usually when you have a little bit more time, you can go deeper and flesh it out. Whether it's building a project management tool or an event tracker or some automation system for your business, it's all very straightforward. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about how this all works, what's underneath the covers and how we built these things. Next slide. So we'll start with the editing environment, the IDE for building AppMaker applications. It's a standalone application. It happens to be running on top of Google App Engine. We're trying to self-host as much as possible. That editor creates and publishes an application that runs in the execution environment. The execution environment is Google Apps Script. So if you've ever used Google Apps Script, it'd be very familiar territory. It runs the same way. We've done a lot of work to Apps Script to beef up both its performance, its capacity, how long you can run big apps, and so forth. And we're continuing to extend out the API surface for Apps Script as well to make it more capable for these applications. Within that, we have a storage model. So it's built-in storage as part of the AppMaker thing. So you don't have to provision databases. You don't have to go off and spin up a SQL server or something like that. It has built-in storage as part of it. And we have data connectors that allow us to connect to a variety of external data sources, such as MySQL, Cloud SQL, of course, Postgres, and other third-party data sources. And that's an area where we'll continue to invest. Next slide. AppMaker will be delivered as part of G Suite for Business. So if you are a G Suite for Business customer, you can get AppMaker. You will have an unlimited number of applications, unlimited number of databases. It's basically just tied to the price and the business model of G Suite for Business, and then you can build out as many applications as you want. We know that these applications tend to be small and have medium usage every now and then, but can spike crazily. We've built our whole scaling model around the G Suite for Business licensing model, as it just scales with the organization and lets you build out as many solutions as you need for your business. Next slide. A key part of AppMaker, and we heard this early on with our own internal development, and our customers have reiterated this point, is integration with as many Google services as possible. So every G Suite API, many Google Apps APIs, many of the YouTube and ads, a lot of ad systems run through AppScript as well. Cloud Platform, of course, is also deeply integrated. All of these things are directly accessible from within AppMaker. Some of them have high-level widget support, and other things where you can just go off and write code directly to access it. Next slide. So now what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about some of the things that our customers have already been doing with AppMaker, just to give you a sense of the different kinds of applications people can build. So there's a company called Ocado. They're an online retailer in the United Kingdom. Very strong technology-focused company, so they've been really building from the ground up with a lot of technology investment. But even there, their IT organization, as I sort of said before, is very much focused on their line of business, their core operational needs, and so a lot of the gaps in between were left unfulfilled. In particular, they have, like Google, they actually have a pretty aggressive training program. Can we go back a slide, please? Can you go back a slide? Thank you. they had an internal process for managing training requests. So their staff can go off and sign up for various trainings and conferences, and the management approvals, the tracking of expenses, the whole process was just brutal. And they were just drowning in sheets and paperwork and emails. They had all kinds of sort of manual processes. They thought AppMaker was a perfect opportunity for them to go off and tackle that problem. And in about 30 hours of eng time, they had their first version of this training sort of management tool in place and being used by internal users. I mean, obviously they've continued to invest in that, but in 30 hours they had something that was already making their world a lot better. Next slide, please. Another company called Quora has struggled to manage just scheduling of various internal perk activities, whether it was sort of access to, I think they have a massage program like Google or something. Again, they had a scheduling problem. They literally were printing out spreadsheets and having sign-up forms, and it's amazing. And it always strikes me how more often than not, the competition for some sort of automation solution is paper. For better or for worse. And so they were able to build out an application, replace a lot of these spreadsheets and paper things with a simple application that allowed them to manage in a distributed way across the organization access to these resources. Next slide, please. And I'll also talk about the state of Wyoming. State of Wyoming was a very interesting case. They've been early partners with us. They understood the potential of AppMaker and participated in some of our early workshops. And they were able to imagine all kinds of applications. The first one they built actually started with their own internal security people. These security people are responsible for monitoring various types of events from users and systems across all of their IT systems. And we're struggling to just keep all this information together and figure out how to act or to even see connections between various security events. And so they were able to build an application very quickly and connect that with the existing G Suite administrative security events with other systems to bring a global picture, and then add their own layer of policy and interpretation on top of that to create a more secure system. Now, what was powerful for them was that the people defining the need here were not the IT developers. These were the people actually doing the job of managing security. They knew what they needed, but they were not developers. And this picture, a little bit staged, I'll admit that, but ultimately is exactly what happened. The security ops people sat down with the engineer and said, I want it to look like this. I want this information here. And so instead of having to write a spec or a document that is not what their normal day job is, they just knew it when they saw it, and the engineer was build it, react very quickly. It was a very powerful experience for them. It really changed how they think about building applications. So I gave a talk about now where we are today.
Where are we with AppMaker right now? We started out about a year ago with a few large customers that were building applications with very close guidance of our engineering team. And they built some of the applications that we told you about. Last November, we announced our early adopter program. This made AppMaker available to every G Suite business customer that applied to our program. And this can be done online. What we are planning for later this year is to launch this as general availability. And this will mean that every G Suite business customer will have this product as part of their G Suite core services. The way to get into our early adopter program is to go to gsuite.google.com/appmaker, and your admin needs to put in their details there and ask to get into the program. And in a few days, you'll be able to use the product just like I showed you here, and in the same way that every customer will be able to use it shortly. Now I'd like to tell you what are some good ways for you to start using the product and build your own AppMaker applications in your company. We look at the world of business custom apps as split between different major categories. One popular use case is data entry. A lot of companies are collecting data from different sources and want to aggregate and display those in a manageable way. One example is inspections that a lot of companies have to do for health and safety in their different branches, or just to check on inventory and different other things in chains of stores. The second category that we know about is reporting. There are a lot of applications that actually want to show decision makers what's going on and what data is available for them to consider what they need to do based on different sources from various databases and areas in the company. So a very urging example for this is the register that the EU has actually chartered for all companies in the EU. They need an information asset register, and each company needs to have available all their intellectual property assets monitored by who has access to what. Another application that we see here is dashboards for the performance of different lines of business in the company, and many companies have custom requirements for how they want to see this, or how different roles in the company, what views do they need to have for this data. The third area that is very popular is workflow. By workflow, we mean some kind of multi-stage process that a few people or a few parts of your organizations are involved in, and it's usually serial and based on the previous stages, this is what you do going forward. And there are lots and lots of examples here. One is how to actually create a price quotation for a customer. Another one that we see here often is a help desk. Many customers implement a help desk using different G Suite products like forms, sheets, and sites. Whereas if you use AppMaker and build your own app, you can have your own dedicated UI and implement very custom things that are unique to the way you handle tickets in your company. Another thing that we want to help you with is to really identify in your company what are the signals for areas where you should build an AppMaker app, or if you build an app you would really benefit from. And these indicators are, they have different forms in different parts of the company. One thing that we see a lot of time is the spreadsheet from hell. This is a very large spreadsheet, or a lot of spreadsheets, and many of you know these in your companies. And they usually have lots of columns, many lines of updates. There are usually more than a handful of people that are taking care of those. And what this usually means is that there is an underlying workflow in this spreadsheet. And AppMaker can help build a UI that's custom to different roles that are managing this workflow, and also provide different views to managers or people who need to take a look at the data during the workflow and see how things are going. Another advantage doing this with a dedicated and custom-built UI is that you have less errors in data entries, that working with a sheet is always something that can happen. Another signal for a candidate AppMaker app is bulk operations. And the examples that I want to outline here are G Suite product bulk operations. A lot of companies send out bulk emails based on specific events that have occurred. In some companies, people have recurring meetings or events that they want to invite a single person to. Also, there is the issue of employees leaving the company or starting working at the company. They need to be added to a lot of meetings. And doing this is usually a long manual process. If you could build a small Suite app that you could just kind of tick which meetings you want this person to be added to, click a button, and have this done on your behalf very easily. The third area that I want to point out is existing extensive scripting in the company. So many of you are probably using AppScript or BigQuery, and that means that you're already been thinking about implementing custom business processes in your companies, and AppMaker could help you build these faster and in more productive ways to create possibly nicer UIs and spend your time as engineers or business analysts doing the core parts of your business.
So what's next? We've had a great progress so far, but we're looking ahead to the next things and what we're going to do with AppMaker. The key thing is we want this to be an increasingly open platform. We want people contributing to it and so forth. But we're going to really bootstrap that starting specifically with sources to data. We recognize that applications want to take advantage of data-bound access to various underlying business data, and it's not just about a data that's stored in a spreadsheet or piece of database, but also existing systems that you have that you want to bind data into. It's already possible to go off and build read-only data sources within your application, but we're going to extend that to go to more different types of SaaS products, more database sources directly, to make it easier and easier for you to build applications that are integrated with the data of your business. We'll add more samples and modules. We have a growing library of ready-to-use applications where you don't even have to go off and write code. It's just an application where you can just customize the user experience a little bit and launch it inside your business. We are also actively starting to create a community around the development environment so that everybody who is an app maker developer can lean on each other and benefit from each other's learnings and lessons across the organization. Every AppMaker application can be distributed internally using G Suite Marketplace. So when you've built an application, you need to deploy it to your organization. You can take care of all the OAuth grants and management at the administrative level. So if you want to learn more, go to these links, developers.google.com/appmaker. And then there's a long link towards the code labs. If you work your way through those code labs, you will be a proficient AppMaker developer. They have been in development internally for a very long time. They're quite rich, and they cover everything you can need to know about AppMaker. And it is remarkably easy to get productive with that. Next slide. If you're not in the AppMaker EAP right now, please do apply. As Geva said, application needs to come from the domain administrator of your G Suite for Business domain. But once you've done that, we'll quickly turn it around to you and get you going inside AppMaker. Next slide. So I'd like to bring it all together. I hope you enjoyed our talk today. We've been working on this for a very long time. Geva and I here are just up on stage, but really there's an army of engineers and support people and sales people, and just every part of the organization has been working for a long time to build this. This project has been under development for, I guess, 4 or 5 years now. Something like that. It feels like that anyway. Just telling you what we've already told you, this is a low-code application development tool. You can bring to bear on solutions you would not have otherwise dared to touch.